Welcome to The Real Deal. I remembered the shades today because it's important to be chill, relaxed, and pack your patience because everyone knows that a patient trader is a profitable trader. It's easy enough to say that. Be patient, wait for your setup, wait for your entry, wait for your opportunity, wait for your edge. But you've got to figure out ways to be able to put that into practice. So if you're having trouble being patient as a trader, I want to give some ideas as to how you can and try to improve on it. And the first thing is to recognize that we are who we are. Like, we're human beings and we're not robots, right? So whomever you are as a person, as a trader, personality type, risk averse, risk taker, you are never going to eliminate that from you altogether. What you can do is play into your strengths and try to limit and minimize your weaknesses. That's what you can do. You don't change who you are overnight. I mean, my wife can try all she wants. It's just not going to happen. I try to do my best, but you are going to be you. So the first thing, and everything comes from this one concept, at least to me, and I think a lot of traders you might hear talk about this: create if-then statements for your trades. It is one thing for me to say, I am looking for a long in Tesla. Okay, that's great. I want to go long Tesla. Where? Why? How? Who? What? Like all that good stuff. So it's not enough to just say that. What price do I want to buy it at? What conditions need to set up for me to want to execute off of that price? Where is my stop going to be? If it goes in the money, what is my plan of action? So the first is how am I going to get into the trade? Now, if I'm just buying a dip, that could be off a support level, but I'll give you a more fluid example here because I like to have these lessons always refer to something, if I can, that happened in here today. So Tesla, I wanted to see relative strength after the last couple of days. It had been dumping at the open and then catching a bit of a bid. So I wanted to join strength if it started dumping, not try to catch the bottom, but I wanted to see a few signs of strength. One, makes the wipeout bottom and recover. So, okay, well, it did that pretty clearly. Then I wanted to see it hold VWAP, and then after a clear VWAP hold, I wanted it to be able to hold a consolidation on a top breakout. So the initial trade was, it gave me the wipeout bottom, there's your higher low, there's your VWAP hold, and then there is your top. I wanted to, if it breaks the top, and anyone that was watching the live show, my condition was breaks the top, give it to the local bottom on that test, scalp the range, and then try to hold for more. So it doesn't hold that range. At that point, I'm out of the trade, but I still want to be long Tesla. So what I'm not going to do in that situation, or what I could do, you could just say, do the same thing, take the breakout of the high of the day and rinse and repeat the same trade. But the breakout trade didn't work. So I stopped and tried to come up with a new entry concept, which was not going to be taking a breakout, but rather a dip buy. And you might hear me say this: if breakouts aren't working later on in the day, try to join a trend with a bit of a dip buy. So it's a very nuanced trade, but it was a different if-then statement. So all I cared about is after I stopped out, I wanted a higher low to hold the higher low, bid came back above the 189, so there's your low at 188.80. Once it held the 189, I jump in there. There is my stop, scalp the range, and then go higher. So I went from, let's take a breakout and give it to the local bottom, to wait once it's made that break, wait for it to put in a higher low and give it to the next local bottom where you're getting the bottom of the trade. See, when you do this, suddenly you're not just going to be punching in at random prices or without a stop. So I always have an out before I get in. I have an initial target before I get in. And on top of that, I'm able to adjust on the fly if the breakouts aren't working for me. So like I said, an if-then statement should be something that you can coherently say, this is what I'm going to do. And the best part about that is if you happen to be a beginning trader, let's say you've just started out, maybe you're paper trading and you don't have a sim account or whatever it might be, if you have to develop these, that allows you to back test your strategies and forward test them, because everything you're doing is pretty non-discretionary. It has to do this before it does that, and then I get in, this is where I get out. So you can, as long as you're honest with yourself, you can really test your strategies without just sort of random entries and exits, whether you took the fills or not, because you know the conditions that had to happen for you to get in or not. And I think one of the other things that you got to consider when you're doing this style of trading is, what do you do? And it's not always an easy thing to consider. What am I going to do when conditions change, when things go wrong? But you should ask yourself, if conditions change, what am I going to do about that change? I'll give you an example of something that didn't work out for me. So I wanted to VWAP buy the dip here on Mara. Like, my initial plan was going to be, if it holds VWAP higher lows, I'm going to buy the dip in front of support on VWAP. Now, what I ended up doing here is changing a condition. You can see I didn't hold it to VWAP on this trade because Bitcoin didn't hold 45,000. So my initial thought, now this ended up being the wrong decision, but I didn't want to get wrapped up on this technical trade when Bitcoin didn't actually hold the level. So what you must do in a situation like this is take a step back. Okay, well, my original idea was holding, it's still holding VWAP. Come up with a new condition as to my entry. Find a support level on Bitcoin if I want to do that. If this level makes a higher low on Bitcoin, re-enter the trade off of VWAP. Like, you've got to set a new condition for entry if your first one either doesn't work or you essentially bungle it. Now, obviously in this particular case, I'm saying I could have found my way back in, but let's take a step back for a second. What I did was change my condition mid-trade because of another indicator. So when you were reviewing your if-then statements, I can't just say, oh, well, that was silly, I should have held on to the trade. No, the answer to that question is, I should not have been anchoring this trade to a round number on Bitcoin. I should have had some more nuanced reason to get out. Maybe I needed it to break a significant amount lower underneath that $45,000 level. Maybe I needed to allow it to bounce off VWAP before taking the entry into the trade. So when evaluating that if-then statement, it's not as simple as, oh, the trade didn't work, I'm just going to throw Bitcoin out. Or the trade bounced off VWAP, next time I'm just going to hold it to underneath VWAP. You want to be a little bit more nuanced in that. Maybe there was something to Bitcoin bouncing. It actually did bounce off just underneath that 45,000 level. So you make these adjustments, never throw out the baby with the bathwater. But if any trader cannot explain before they enter a trade, I need to see X happen, then I will do Y. And if Z happens, I am out. And if A, B, and C happen, I'm taking profits. If you can't go through and explain that in your trade, then you shouldn't be putting trades on, because you don't have a plan of action. And if you don't have a plan of action, you're going to get rinsed. The market is more than willing to punish you for not having a plan of action. And when your plan is wrong, you need to be honest with yourself as to the reason. Not just, oh, it didn't work, I should have held it to VWAP, as I'm saying here. No, it's the specific reason I get out didn't have to do with VWAP on Mara. It was 45,000 on Bitcoin. So you need to evaluate that part of the equation first and why I didn't do it. And then I can worry about the VWAP portion of Mara. Right? So you just make sure that you're doing it step by step. I know it can be tedious, but at the end of the day, trading is, if you want it to be your job, if you want it to pay your income, then you've got to treat it as such. And that means taking every trade seriously. That means making every decision a serious one. That means evaluating every decision. You've got to take it seriously and make sure you're going through all those steps. It's simple enough to say if-then statements, but I've seen way too many traders not take the time to do it. So that's the real deal. You want to be a patient trader, create if-then statements that you can explain in detail with nuance so that you can be objective in your trading, and then evaluate yourself properly. Good luck, traders.